call to order the May 16th, 2024 regular board meeting. Number 3, roll call shows all trustees are present, all staff is present, and our attorney Ashley is present. 4, agenda changes. Under new business, we will move D and E before A. 5, consent agenda. We have A, the May 2nd, 2024 regular board meeting minutes. B, licenses and permits as presented. And C, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. Are there any?
There are none.
Okay. 7, committee reports. There are none. 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. We will start with D, discussion and possible action on updating zoning code.
So this has kind of been looked at for a few months now amongst staff, and it kind of goes in line with our comprehensive plan, which is going to be an upcoming agenda. And in the comp plan, it talks about going over our zoning code. Most of that is due to issues with our zoning code. And talking with the attorney, we figured out a few different options we could do, kind of working it through her and the P&Z to try to figure out how to alter our zoning code and do kind of an overhaul of what currently is there. We have many properties that are out of compliance with our current code due to the age that they, well, at the time they were put in the older parts of town. So I think there's a big need for us to relook at this zoning code and update it. There's kind of a summary, a memo of some of the issues that we've encountered. I'm sure there's plenty more that we haven't yet. And the attorney wrote up a few comments as well. Just kind of curious on your concerns or thoughts. The idea would be to get somewhat of an approval from you guys, and then basically to kind of do a lot of this through planning and zoning. Because there's a few areas where there's probably going to be some larger discussions on what we really want for accessory buildings, signage, and then different uses and different zoning codes as well. So
I personally have gotten 2 zoning calls in the last week, questions regarding, and I've tried to read our zoning on the, what is it called?
the Municode.
Municode, and it's confusing. And I think that's a great idea, just to do a good sweep of our zoning, because it is hard to understand. It's hard to point a resident in a direction if I don't even understand it, how are they going to understand it?
Right.
So,
I think it's always going to be something that will be ever evolving. It's a living, breathing document, so to speak. I was looking through again today, just in anticipation of today's meeting. I mean, the section on conditional uses hasn't been updated since 1989. There have been significant statutory changes since that time. Nathan has pointed out issues with the variance section before. I know we've talked about that. So, you know, at some point you're going to have to do a review and overhaul. Sounds like the time might be. Residential and
This would be for all zoning districts.
just everything in the middle.
Correct. There's a large process once you have something that, let's say, the village wanted done, and we all agreed, there's a process, we have to go through public hearings. So it's a longer process to kind of get this up to date.
Cause I see this, like, first one is about driveways. Like,
Right.
long term, we're gonna wanna see like many driveways updated or,
Well, so some of the driveway, and some of it we're gonna address tonight because so currently, if you don't have a driveway that's 24 to 36 feet wide, if you, let's say, have a gravel driveway and want to go to concrete or asphalt, you would have to update and try to make it 24 to 36 feet wide. And some houses, especially in the older parts of town, can't do that.
Like
So,
Main Street.
There's
for
some
example.
lots that don't have that.
Yeah, so
Right.
for Main Street, for example, you know, I look at my driveway is definitely not that wide, but that's,
right, so it kind of it puts staff in a weird spot when someone's asking for, you know, to change or to update their driveway and they can't comply because our code is not allowing it. So,
this would be making the code more,
yeah, I think it's cleaning up areas. I don't know, I can't tell you for sure what it would do because realistically, that's conversations I think the planning and zoning and the board gotta have with, you know, because some things might be more restricted than what we currently have and some might be less restrictive than we currently have. So it's kind of hard to paint with a broad brush at this point.
yeah.
But I think there's a lot of areas that need that type of discussion with the board and with the planning and zoning members.
Nathan, you're talking about approximately 3 years to complete this?
That's, some of them have been that long, it might be less, it depends on how back and forth we get on certain items, because there are certain items that might take a while, like talking, sometimes accessory buildings becomes a big question. Do you allow for multiple, how many do you allow, is it based on square footage, is it based on, is there a max? Is it based on percent of the property? So there's a lot of different things you can do in certain sections, and depending on how the board is, it might take a while to kind of go through some of those questions.
When do you think it could start? Any idea?
It'd be our June meeting for planning and zoning would be kind of our, after the comp plan, we'd probably kind of discuss kind of hopefully a time, or kind of create a, basically a listing maybe of some of the areas we want to kind of start addressing and
Yeah,
discussing.
I think like for our office, what would be helpful, have that initial meeting, get a sense of like, okay, what are some of the high priorities? How do we want it to look? How do we want it to read? I mentioned that Nathan pointed to Little Chute zoning code as one that he felt was more user-friendly, and I agree. So give us some direction, and then it will take time for us to come back with an initial draft, and then a lot of it is just, it's up to your committee, or commission to decide the specifics about driveways, or, you know, we don't have a legal opinion on that, but, those conversations can take time because it impacts so many people.
Do you typically include some sort of like a written grandfather clause in this type of thing, or? I
So,
mean, because I just wouldn't want to see us go and change stuff and then go to people and say, well, now you don't comply, so we'll fix your stuff.
so part of it is actually kind of adding something like that in there. In the Little Chute code, they have it, and we can set how we want, but they have it, you know, properties pre-1950s, I think is theirs. And there was a very different standard at that time for size of lot, setbacks and whatnot. So what they would do is basically say that those are a different set of rules for them on setbacks.
Where we had a property owner who put up a fence without a permit, and then like, it just turned into a total mess, but he was driving around and pointing out all the nonconformities across town and filing complaints against all of his neighbors. And the truth of the matter is we were able to go back and look on GIS and demonstrate that most of these improvements predated the restrictions that applied to him in that instance. So, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't know what my community might require of me in the future. Now, it's a different scenario if I go to them after a restriction is in place and say, I want to build a new house on this lot and I want that old code to apply to me. That's not gonna fly, but existing improvements would be grandfathered in. But the goal is, especially for some of these districts where you have higher density or long-standing issues, to draft a code that fits with what's appropriate at that location.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You move your bag.
Is it my bag?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah,
Something's
there.
reflecting
the
right
metal
in your
was, like,
eyes.
right in my
I know,
eyes.
the sun was pretty bad.
Sorry.
Sorry. Like you can see Nathan going blind over there.
Then would you like a motion for us to have you go ahead with this, or just?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If there are no more questions, we would need that motion.
I'll make a motion for to begin discussions with the planning and zoning with regards to updating our zoning code.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. E, discussion on how to proceed with downtown design options.
So our engineer from McMahon is here to kind of discuss some of the design options on the downtown section prior to meeting with the downtown businesses. And then there is a little discussion for us after he's done on some of the other items and how you want to try to figure out what you want design-wise, like lighting, shape of the light or whatever, and how you want to figure those things out. So.
We've had a couple meetings in the last month or so talking about some of the design considerations going forward with the county highway department and also with the village. We were informed here, I don't know, maybe a month ago, maybe a little less, that there was a decision made or direction intended to go, I guess, in terms of the trail. Right now, the county's master plan includes a 10-foot paved trail all the way from Gibbons Road all the way through town, connects up with the trail that continues on into Greenville. County also has a master plan that shows at some point that might eventually connect to New London. They also mentioned a couple times that they're interested in somehow trying to figure out a connection to the Wyowash. The direction, or what we were hearing, that the board made a decision, or again, a preference to make that trail be part of Main Street. That creates all sorts of havoc. The trail is 10 feet wide. The design guidelines for a trail, not only is it 10 foot wide, but you have to have a 2-foot clear zone on each side. So, for example, on Main Street, there's a bunch of places where there's stoops that actually extend from the building face out onto the sidewalk area. So you'd have to be 2 foot clear of that. And any other fixed object, like a planter, a bench, a light pole, anything else that's above the surface of the ground, you have to have 2 feet clear also. So the 10 feet really becomes 14 feet, and it becomes almost untenable to basically have a situation where you could open up the door of the business and you could have a guy clipped into his pedals on a speed bike going, 20 mile an hour right in front of you. Not a great design choice. In talking to the county and the county highway commissioner, the alternative to that would be to, if you want it on that corridor, I'm going to jump into the details. So this first sheet that is in front of you is basically what you've got today. It varies a little bit in width. The right-of-way is 66 feet, give or take. It varies a few tenths through there. In a lot of cases, the building fronts are at or within a foot or two of the right-of-way lines on each end. So for the most part, you have about a 7-foot sidewalk on each side, give or take. It varies a little bit. When you flip to the next page, it shows two additional options, or two options for reconstruction. I did not show the option in creative detail showing what would happen with the 10-foot trail incorporated on the south side. But what you'd be left with is 14 feet total sidewalk area. Yeah, you'd end up with probably about a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk on the north side, and then 14 or 15 on the south side. And I may be a little bit off on the math, but we'd have to widen up the south side quite a bit wider than the north side. You'd actually lose space compared to the existing condition on the north side of the street. Streetscaping becomes basically impossible. If you want to offer outdoor seating, planters, even the decorative light poles, all that gets really tough to incorporate. So I didn't draw that. I could if there was an intention to stick with that. What I did draw, the one on top would be what we thought was the original design intent was to put the trail off corridor through the downtown section. So what that would be is a 11-foot travel starting at the center of the road, 11-foot travel lane, 9 feet for the on-street parking. There's half a foot for the curb head in there, and you have 12.5 feet. So you gain, from the 7-foot sidewalk area, you go up to 12.5. So you gain another, 5.5 feet, which is, it's good. It'd be better if it was even larger yet, but if you want the on-street parking, that's basically how this is coming out. The section that you see below it would be the section that we'd have to implement if you wanted to put the bike lanes into the roadway. You can do that, it's allowable. The required width for the bike lane is 5 feet. It has to be both sides. The county highway commissioner was very strong on the fact that it had to be symmetrical. We couldn't just put a 5-foot bike lane on one side and assume somebody was going to go counter to traffic in the roadway. So you'd have an 11-foot travel lane, a 5-foot bike lane, the 9-foot of on-street parking, and then you'd be down to 7.5. So you basically would have the same sidewalk and terrace area as you have today, give or take half a foot, right? So you haven't gone backwards, at least, with that option. But again, it greatly diminishes your opportunity to do streetscaping, anything on street. It's real tough if you put a series of benches or something up against building faces. You burn up 3 feet, hang your feet out front, you burn up 4. It only leaves 3 left or something. So you're pretty restricted on what you can do in terms of streetscaping with the 7 or 7.5, 12, 12.5. Now you've got some options. So we just wanted to kind of start the dialogue about this again, just because there was an intention at the end of the month to start talking about, well, what elements could we draw into this in terms of streetscaping. We kind of brainstormed amongst ourselves about what we thought because there basically won't be any. So we just wanted to have that discussion. I don't know if Nathan or Aaron wanna, I don't know if I characterized it the same way you saw it with
Yeah.
our meeting with the county.
I think, you know, for the on-street bike lanes, I think I have a few concerns. One is it's a tight travel lane already. You're gonna have probably troubles with people opening car doors on bikers if they do go through that center of travel, or on that bike lane. The other issue is the transition from trail onto those bike lanes is gonna be very awkward, because they're gonna have to cross. So if you're coming from the east going west, you're on the south side, now you gotta cross somewhere in order to get to the north side to get into that bike lane. And then back down once you get past this corridor area to cross back in. So you're gonna have a few transitions there. I think it's gonna hinder, I think bike lanes help for, let's say, the hardcore bikers more than it does for families going places. I think a lot of families wouldn't wanna have their children on bike lanes. And I think it limits some of our usage doing that.
I think we originally had talked about putting the bike trail down the main street because we felt that would funnel traffic into the main street. But I think we'd be doing a huge disservice to our business owners downtown by taking maybe a potential 12-foot sidewalk and making it 7.
I think even worse is when you got one side that's got 5 and
Yeah,
one side that's got 15.
Huge
'cause-
disservice. I think that's, and are we assuming that something behind or by the creek is completely out of the question?
No.
So I know that we wanted to get people downtown, but I think that reducing those sidewalks is actually going to hurt businesses versus helping.
I agree, and I don't think that it's fair to have one side with the ability to have outdoor seating. I don't care which side it is. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna
I think-
have one side that's
I
no.
think the county highway commissioner didn't want to do anything that wasn't symmetrical because of that issue.
I mean, it'll deter if, let's say, a business, heaven forbid, moves out on the side that's a 5 foot. You're limiting now what business you're gonna have, because you're gonna say, I wanna be on the other side that I can have outdoor this or outdoor that.
Plus, let's say a business owner does put something outside, isn't there an ADA width requirement on a pedestrian sidewalk?
Yeah, 42-inch clear.
So, that hinders that as well.
Yeah, that would get tight with, I don't think there's stoops on the north side also. Even that would get a little tight between the curb and those steps that project
So that's a
out.
safety issue.
Yeah, and we'd have to watch that we at least provided the.
And there are some businesses, I think, that still have awnings, and I don't know how far those awnings come out too.
And I don't know that would.
There's none that I think protrude into the, they're not stabilized in the sidewalk area, but they're,
But you know what I mean? Like a business wanted to put an awning or has an existing framework to do that. Now they're limited to, I don't know. I'm just thinking a lot of businesses used to have.
Especially on the 5 foot side.
Mhm.
That's what I think that's what she's saying is, on the 5 foot side, you've got all day on the other side.
So I'm just gonna kind of go back to, so we're not assuming that we can't do anything behind, but are we willing to take that bike traffic out of the main street is what the question is?
well, I think initially you guys wanted to kind of have it end and allow people to figure out how to get through. And that probably is not gonna be agreed upon by the county. I think that idea. End somewhere and not continue through.
What was our roadblock from preventing us from doing alley 2?
alley 2 was.
It's the south side,
so
right by the creek.
There was a few issues. Some of the business owners were concerned with the facade, the rear facades of their businesses not looking the greatest, which they don't. But we can always work on amending our facade program to allow for rear and front in the downtown if we wanted to.
And doing it on the south side of the creek, that was also kind of a hindrance because we had to wait, we kind of, I don't want to say landlocked there, but we kind of are because,
We would have had to wait until the other owner on the other side of the creek wanted to sell. The bank said they'd give us an easement. We have our property there, but that other homeowner didn't want to talk to us about anything or even hear us out. And we could start on the south side and then cross, but then you're paying for a bridge. And I think the other issue areas on the north side were, one was the parking somewhat being reduced, and then the other thing was the access on the west side of the alleyway. It gets really tight in there because you're talking 12 feet, and currently you allow for car and bike, then would be car and bike traffic going through there.
maybe this is more of an Aaron question. I don't know. How large of a culvert can you put? Like, so instead of let's say a bridge, could we culvert over the creek there? Because the creek's not deep. It's just it's got the width.
Yeah, I mean, you have to encompass the width of the stream. Basically, should the bank full width, so when the water rises up, you have a natural kind of flood deterrent with the dam right there, so it's not as scary. But once you start getting into those bigger culverts, the bridge is almost
Better.
yeah.
Okay. You're just trying to think of cost. I know that was a big cost. But so nice to get some of that traffic into that green space back there too, because the village has that property that's just sort of sitting there. But that would, if we could figure out a way to do that.
I think you also have to consider all the bikes that would have to be parked out front if the bike lane was going down Main Street too. That's gonna take up space and,
Yeah.
Maybe one bike rack in that little corner thing?
yeah.
That's a good point, Bob. And I don't know, I mean, is this more of a, when do you need to know, Ron?
Well,
Yesterday.
no, not necessarily, but there was, I think it was June or May
30th.
30th. There was intended to be a meeting to discuss, just sort of lay out a series of options of what we could do in terms of streetscaping to start the dialogue with the board and businesses and everybody else. And it was like, whoa, stop! We had a more major issue is what's happening with the trail, because it's a whole different conversation if we're putting a 10-foot bike lane through the front of those properties versus say the option on the top of the page where we got 12 and a half to work with, and we don't have all those constraints with the clearance requirements from the lane and everything else.
But then we need to show the county that we're rerouting that bike lane in a different way, right? We
Yes.
can't just, okay.
Yeah, because at some point, the county's paying us to design the project, and they don't want to get 6 months further into it and then back up and say, oh, never mind, we're changing the sections and we're now putting the lanes on the street through downtown, and we have to redesign that section of Main Street. They want to, they're not necessarily on fast track with this. We've got time, but we have to keep moving, or it'll be 2030, and we'll still,
Nathan, what's it gonna take to see what our options are in that alley? Like, I know you've done a lot of research, but is this where you need to pull in a committee, or you need?
So, I mean, I think it's all stuff look of what it could look like. I think realistically, when you're seeing some of the images we've brought up before for options, it's hard for people to visualize, okay, so there's just a trail going right through here. There's nothing else. There's no like benefit to us. We're losing parking. It's all not positive for them as of this point. I think realistically, if we had an idea that it was going to go through this way, one way or another, you know, I think there's a few options. I think we gotta, even with the option in the downtown, I think there's gonna have to be some working with the business owners, and maybe, you know, paying for a few things here and there to try to mitigate some of their concerns. I don't know. It's,
But for Ron's intents
I don't know if you're gonna
purposes-
get everyone to agree either.
No.
And I think the hard thing for the board to do, in my opinion, is to, it might be one of those things where you have to make those hard decisions, and you're not gonna make everyone happy, and, yeah, it's,
So for Ron's intents and purposes, the top view, it's symmetrical, county likes that. It's big sidewalks, it gives street parking, it gives travel. And then we could sort out the rest after, I mean, he needs to likely know end of May-ish.
right. I think for the Main Street design stuff, you know, if you're doing the 12.5, that's when we talk through some of that stuff too, is, you know, what type of light poles you guys want, what type of, you know, do you want to do planters, portable planters, you know, different options in the downtown. I mean, if you do the on-street bike lanes, there's no point to have those conversations, because your conversations are had. They're pretty much what we have now, so you might talk maybe about lighting, and that's about it. 'Cause
You wanna do a straw poll of where everybody feels on this? I feel like we're talking about it a lot, but we're just not making a decision, and I think the
Well, and
powers
if-
that be need a decision maker.
I think
Solve a
part
problem
of-
we're not really here to solve right now.
Yeah.
We have to pick between A and B, or
Yeah, A and B.
another option. You know what I mean?
Right. I think part of it too is talking with those business owners too, and just kind of,
They may be more receptive now. A lot of the conversations we had with them about this was pre-bypass. You know, a lot of what we heard was why we even need it. You know, now that the traffic patterns have changed and they've kind of seen the difference, there may be some more interest in trying to do something back here.
I only have one serious question, and that is, if you go on the south corridor, and it's a little bit off, my vote for the straw poll is the top one here, just so you know. So that would mean diverting it to the south. What happens to the vehicular traffic through there? You have to have 14 feet still, right? For the trail?
Well,
14.
it'd be a 10-foot trail with 2-foot clear.
Okay.
So that doesn't prohibit vehicular traffic occupying that same space. It's not ideal. And the 14, because I think the width of that property might only be 12 or something, but that doesn't cause us trouble unless there's, you know, a series of power poles or something else right at the edge that would,
I think there is.
you know, cause us some grief. So,
I
Okay.
think.
there's some of that. I think there's a way to work too with the businesses on the north end, or right in that area. There's an easement they currently have that's a 30-foot easement where they're supposed to have no parking or anything between the first three on the west side there. Granted, people do park there right now, but there's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be all ingress, egress all through there. So there could be some working with that easement to try to maybe put in another space for vehicles to go through.
So
Separated
vehicular
from the
traffic
tree.
could drive through there, they just wouldn't be able to park where that is. They could
Okay.
drive, it's just there's no parking where the trail would be.
yes.
I mean, other than like a chutes and ladders plan, I'm not really sure.
Like drive through all the way?
No,
No, you can't drive.
Bike lane
Just-
through the
just
whole
the
way.
Nice if you
Well, it's
could.
like drive, not bike.
But like you could still, because I know the vehicles like on the east side pull in up to a certain point. They just wouldn't be able to park where that bike path or multimodal trail or whatever you want to call it. They wouldn't be able to park there, but they could drive on it. And then it's wide enough in that middle section to get through if there's some adjustments made. And then on the west end, there's some vehicular traffic. They just wouldn't be able to park where that trail is.
yeah, the east end is not as hard. Most of that on the east end is our property. You could have it cross over here by the bridge, basically, and then kind of alongside.
Back when we were having these discussions, there was also the mix of, well, we'll make that a one-way. We'll do
Mhm.
that was assuming we were going to make vehicular traffic go straight through, and I don't think that's viable. But a bike trail, I think, is. And I know that if for Ron's intents and purposes, we just need to pick A or B here and work through it after. We just need to look at, you want like designs, you want.
And we could, it sounds like you would include mocking up how this trail would fit into that landscaping option with
Right.
the heirs folks. So we could just pause here for 15 days or 30 days and make sure that that's going well. We could just stop all this whole discussion about Main Street and the width, and, you know, I guess we could have speculative conversation about streetscaping if it were to be the option on top, and if the trail was to be behind, we could proceed, I guess, on that basis, but, it might make sense, you know, to not get ahead of our skis here, you know, let that plan for the back, I mean, both alleys in essence, you know, let that bear a little fruit, maybe that will help with the acceptance from the property owners. And maybe at that point they're like, oh, this, yeah, I'm not as concerned about this. And then we've got a full green light. We don't have to worry about getting, you know.
I don't think we'll ever get a full green light, and I think at some point the board's just going to need to make a decision, and we work with it. And I grew up in a business that was downtown. I grew up in downtown, and I know that we're never going to make anyone happy, you know.
But we need to have input from everybody,
We
otherwise
need-
they're really gonna be
correct.
unhappy.
We need input, but when I look at, if we have two choices here, I can't imagine any business owner would want 5 or 7 feet in front of their property.
I would ask them all.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, yes.
I think some of them might say,
Now, there's a different permutation I didn't map out. We're allowing for on-street parking on both sides of Main Street. If you wanna get rid of on-street parking, now we free up some
You can
space.
stop
So
right there.
You're absolutely
You can
lost.
stop
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
I didn't map it because I didn't think it would be a
No.
crowd favorite, but, you know, I just wanted to make sure that you heard that, you know, you could, you know, if you needed to, you could take away on-street parking on one side if you had to. It is just so fantastic that at least this corridor legally exists. Now, there may be some pain and agony in getting all the details worked out, but if that corridor hadn't existed for, what is it, a decade or something, then this would be an entirely different conversation, because now that would all be, you know, on the come, you don't have a guarantee, you know, if you didn't have that, you would have to work pretty diligently with all those properties to acquire it. So that part, fortunately, is.
Are you talking the downtown zoning district?
No, I'm talking this 12
We already
foot.
have,
Oh,
but we already, the width we already
Okay.
have.
Okay.
The fact that that legally is under your control, is, you know, that opens up a whole, you know, you've got a lot of power then because you legally own it, and therefore you can steer the ship a lot better. If you had to acquire that from somebody yet, then this whole concept of the trail back there would be a lot more tenuous. But it's you know, you have the property, you just have to decide what you're gonna do with it, if you're gonna do something with it, so.
The heirs stuff won't be anything by the time that May 30th happens, because that same night, the AIRS group is gonna meet with the downtown business owners as well to discuss and look at different, other downtowns and try to look at images and what they like, what they don't like, and
Can we steer heirs to be like, look at these options for a bike path behind your business?
we've talked
What
to
it
them
could bring
about
to your
options. And basically, I think for them, it's more of trying to figure out what's the best to utilize of that site. They know that the trail's at each end right now, so I think, I don't know if they're gonna have a great, input necessarily prior to the, downtown business owners being talked to again about the trail, so just,
It'd be interesting to see what their choices are, especially those on the south side. You know, if you said, you know, you get 5 feet, or you could get 12, but you have to give up a little bit back here. And now you've got customers going in the front and back of your building, and a lot of those have entrances in the front and the back. So now you've got visibility on both sides. And if they see how pretty it can be.
Different types of customers too.
Is this gonna go past where Loose Wheel is?
so.
Like, past the intersection?
At that, basically, yeah, I would go past it. There's a few options that we've talked about in-house on how to get it through past that area.
Not the
But,
trail, I mean like this design, like is it gonna be
oh yeah, it'll be that,
12.5 foot
yep,
sidewalks
I
in
think,
front of Loose
I think
Wheel?
it's all the way through to the Opera House, I think is where it can, the typical sections here, sidewalk-wise would be same all the way through. I think past the Opera House, it switches
Well, yeah, it turns basically residential.
residential,
Past that point.
two parking on each side, and, yeah,
Right.
I think it shrinks the sidewalk a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we've been assuming that the corridor all the way from Nash Street back to Miller Park is essentially the same. It's gonna be concrete pavement rather than asphalt pavement, and we assume that the section that would be built, you know, the width and the parking arrangement, all that would be identical all through there. No, we, you know, that center 2 blocks downtown does have a little different character than in front of the Opera House, and then you got the vacant lot of, you know, passer from the Murphy's old lot. So it kind of changes character to more residential, just past the Briggs.
I have concern if the trail does go in the south behind the buildings, I would be concerned that there would be some curious ATV use on it. Which I just think
That's
there's,
regulated.
I mean,
if you have ATVs running back there,
well, I think you would have it, I mean, you're gonna have a trail anyway,
but not
it's,
with a motorized ATV on it.
right, but,
Not
I mean,
legally.
the current design is having it on the south side all the way through from the Greendale, so I guess I don't see the difference between Greendale to Nash Street, and then to go downtown, and why that one section would be the only place that you'd have ATV use. I think,
Maybe people would be at the bar and then they would leave on that trail.
and if they break the law, they break the law and we enforce it.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking
The-
of the residents.
The penalties for drinking and, well, I guess the chief can speak to that better. They're probably not going to be scared onto a trail. The penalties for operating while intoxicated on an ATV are not as.
No, it's a DNR violation, right?
I think they could
So
technically
whether
do
they're on
it
the
now,
trail or
right?
the road, I don't
there's-
think there's a
there's
difference.
enough
Yeah,
gap
I
they
mean,
could
it'd be
get
the same as the
between
ticket
one
you'd
and
get
two.
if you got caught driving down the side of 15 on that trail with an ATV right now. I mean, you're gonna get a ticket, because it's not a motorized vehicle trail. Now, the space behind, say, like currently where Otter Creek is, where there would still be shared use, it would be vehicular traffic and a multimodal trail. So you could potentially have, like ATVs and stuff going down to that parking lot. We would probably have to put some signage in the gap area right there where it just multimodal and it's no
usage.
longer vehicular trail. So you just put up a no ATV sign at the end of that parking lot. And then you're violating the law if you drive through there, and you're subject to a ticket.
No different than the rest of the trail going back to Greenville.
Correct, no different than any place else.
Right.
Well, you have to do the same thing for other vehicles too, because a 10-foot path
Yep.
No motorized.
is.
No motorized vehicles beyond this point.
You can
Yeah.
get any, just about any vehicle down a 10-foot paved trail.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you did, so, yeah, back behind there, somebody would try to drive back there through that
There
straightaway.
might be the potential to separate the trail with some kind of curb or something like that from the rest of the parking lot as well, so that you only have, you'd have to jump over that to get onto the trail. That might help keep people off too.
I don't know,
If we could get some more room on that west side.
is there some sort of a limiting barricade that they put in some of them to end?
Well,
I mean, I'm not talking about it, but like, with
So only
space,
certain things can be-
not big enough for a car, but big enough for
A bike or a
for bikes.
Yeah,
stroller
bollards.
walker.
You can put in a
yeah,
bolliard
I
in the
mean,
middle.
yeah, you can separate the two. It gets tough because on both ends, we're acknowledging the fact that there's gonna be licensed vehicles, maybe ATVs, and the bikes jointly using that area, so, we have to look a little bit how you.
I don't know if that would be the case on the east end, because the east end currently, what's been planned since 2013 was
South of the station.
to have it south of the old fire station rather than north of the fire station.
Then that would be easier to separate those.
Yeah. I mean, I think Greenville already has signage on theirs, like on their trail system there. There's no big, there's no motorized
I
vehicles.
mean, I saw a few
We Wash
kids
Trail has it
today.
too.
So what do we need to
motorized
do
on it,
tonight?
but-
I mean,
Really?
Yeah.
what action do we need to do tonight?
I know Ron wants an action item. I would hesitate from acting on the trail portion. I
Yeah.
guess,
It just says discussion.
right, and
Yeah.
We'd have to do a head
And
count.
We just need sort of like, sort of a vibe of what we're looking
I
at.
think realistically, it's, yeah, that, and maybe, a little more of a direction to go to the residents with, is kind of, we didn't want to go to the resident, or to the business owners, talking to them about this when you guys have, for all you knew, that we kind of settled this.
But I think that when we talk to the business owners, we definitely need to visually show them, not a two-dimensional. I think visually, a concept where they can see, this side has 5 feet, this side has 15, or these are both. Because I think that's going to make a big, obviously we can tell, but it's a big difference.
Yeah, I think we can do a color isometric,
Some sort of three-dimensional.
that illustrates that better.
Can the businesses chime in on May 30th
Yeah.
about that?
About the, yeah, that's kind of the idea. I would think then coming back for the board to kind of talk through what the final layout would be after that point.
I would just really make it sure the businesses feel prioritized and
I understand, and I know that's the idea from a lot of the board members. I think the hard,
just be like, and this is how we're gonna make it work for you, or we're gonna sweeten this for you, 'cause
right, and that's gonna be kind of a hard thing, but I think there is some things that could be done to kind of make it aesthetically better back there for some of the residents. One is obviously doing some restoration along the waterway, which Aaron has been looking at. Because it's actually a nice waterway if it's cleared and maintained well. It's got a lot of potential. So I think there's a lot that could be added back there to make it an attractive place for people to want to go and actually hang out at some point. So, I mean, I think it's trying to convey that to the businesses and show them that it might take a little bit of time to kind of be able to show them like a full rendering of what it could look like going through that area.
And gives us access to green space that's currently landlocked.
With landlocked. I think using New London as an example as well, And then there's the SC, is it SC Swiderski, it's doing that large development on the other side of the river from the downtown. Yes, I mean, there's a lot of development, there's a lot of things that are going on down there, but I would love to see the residents be able to utilize that area and then the business owners benefiting from that extra traffic as well.
And I think that's something we do have to remember, that we are, as much as we love the businesses and need them to grow, we've all been voted here by the village residents, and we're their voice, their vote. And we gotta think about the safety. That's my biggest concern, is this proposal for downtown with parking and then with the bike lane.
Yeah, it's
possibly.
scary.
Yeah, that's.
No, I don't think it's a safe, no.
No, I don't either.
So are we looking to get like a head nod for a plan A to present to the businesses? Is that what we're doing here?
I think I've heard enough.
Okay.
We're gonna proceed, rightly or wrongly, we're gonna proceed as if the option on the top of the page is going to take place. And if we have to back up from that, it's not a big deal. But in terms of the streetscaping discussion and that, I'm gonna assume the trail is not part of this corridor in front of the street.
Yeah, and yes, we'd like
Yeah.
street lights, and you know, I mean,
Sure,
you know what I mean, like streetscaping and things, but, thank
So
you.
that's all I think I have a pretty good sense of what everybody's imagining.
So then, I guess the other conversation is how you want to handle the topics of light choices and potentially trees along the corridor, picking the type of trees, along with a few other aesthetic things, potentially. How do you want to do that? I don't think it's viable to do, I don't think it's a good idea to do it in a village board meeting. I think it'd be better in a longer format, because I think a lot of people's choices
Are
different.
varied, yeah.
Yeah, and
What
there's,
kind of meeting do you want?
I don't know. I mean, we can do a cow, you could do a separate ad hoc, I don't know.
I think we should definitely do a cow, then
Mhm.
people can come,
Yeah.
voice
and
their
then-
opinions.
I definitely think you need business
Yes.
owners, because obviously want it to be this similar across, that we don't
Yeah.
want it to look like, hey,
Mhm.
this building is this and this building is that won't be good.
Yeah.
Right.
And it'd be nice if we could visually show it somehow, so, oh, this is what it'll look like.
When?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have that until later on. I guess the idea, like, talking light heads, I think
Let's gather some ideas and then we can
Right,
do
I
some
mean,
renderings and
there's
say,
hundreds of different types of light heads that, and then we could get a few that we could probably put into a design, and then bring back. I don't know a timeline on that. The lights and stuff, like those types of decisions.
It's not mission critical at this point.
Right. So we'd have time where we're not.
it'd be nice just to have a meeting to gather people's thoughts,
Right.
then be able to use that to put together some sort of, I'm really big on the visual side, because I think people
Yeah, I
do
agree.
better when they see it, and then they're more apt to buy in.
Yep. No, I agree.
So I think if we can show them, this is
We
what
just
it'll
gotta narrow it
potentially look
down
like.
from 500 options to
Right, to
probably
3,
2 or 3.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Or you do 3 different renderings that have all 3 options, but be like, okay, we can take the lights from this one, we can do this from this one, but at least they can visually see it.
Is it possible, so when you're saying these 500 options, I'm assuming these are on different websites and things,
Well,
to send that ahead of time so that people can, because
Yeah.
instead of wasting our time, you know what I mean, like
Right.
searching through, I'd like to come with, give us your like top 10, you know?
I think there's one website, Steinberg Lights, that I think they tend to be kind of the go-to. Isn't that what it is? Yeah.
I would say do like you did with Alonzo with the
Like a
splash
search
pad. And people said, we like this and this one, this and this one, this and that one. And it kind of gave us an idea, and then we ran with it.
Yeah.
So that
So
would
I'll-
leave you,
I can send you out the website ahead of time, and some people can come with their options that they think, because, yeah, there's,
I'll look through a website, I mean,
yeah, let's do that.
yeah.
Anything else? No? All right, and then we will move to A. Discussion and possible action on fee changes for Resolution R-13-24, reserve alcohol licenses.
So we talked about this 2 meetings ago. I guess curious on your opinions, at least on the the first one for the local, that one we would have to pass. It's something that state law requires anyway, but we just don't have it for some reason in our fee schedule. So we're just updating that. The second portion was the one that we would sell to other jurisdictions within Allegheny County. And that was the one that is kind of up in the air for whether you want to decide on a price potentially, if you want to even do it at all for the sale.
Have you talked to anyone else? I thought you were gonna contact Greenville and see what they were doing and with their reserve.
They're selling, they haven't decided a price yet. They're kind of, I think, waiting on us too. I don't know. I think realistically, it's what it means to us, I guess. If we're overpriced, whatever. I think if that's, or if you just don't want to, that's another option.
Is it something that can be added at any time, or?
Yeah, it's harder for us because if you guys agreed to this tonight at this, whatever rate you agreed to, then we would put it out to the places we know are looking. So like City of Appleton's normally got a fairly long list of people waiting for alcohol licenses. And we could approach them and.
Be first to the dance.
Right, so it's
we're
not something that they're gonna probably approach us until a little later.
Well, even if
So
somebody comes in
what's
later,
the,
at what price, they're gonna
What's the
want it.
limitation here on selling them? So.
It's a one-time,
Is it completely up, so it's a one-time?
it's a one-time sale,
Yeah.
we
No,
never
I-
get it
I
back.
understand that. But if you or the next administrator just decides they want to sell one, is there,
No.
do these each sale have to
Oh.
go through the board? Have to be pre-approved
Yeah.
before we sell a license?
You would probably want that to be the case. The
Okay.
fee schedule doesn't necessarily state that we would be able to sell it.
Yeah, I think it would have to come to.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily care, like, I don't think it matters who it's being sold to, it's just a
Right.
matter of, are we selling one or two or three, should probably go, and it doesn't, there's nothing in it, so I'm asking a question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Have to
think.
come to the board before they would go up for being sold, and
I
it
think
couldn't
we'd
just
have
be
to
done
write
on one person.
You know, I've never seen it happen any other way, and I don't know
Yeah.
that I've necessarily seen language that's specifically incorporated, but why not have it in there, just, you know, to be certain if that's the concern.
Yeah, I mean, we could put it in there to be approved by the village board.
Yeah.
80,000 plus a village board approval,
Yeah.
and amend it that way, I think would be,
Yeah.
so.
That's
What
my
does
only concern.
everyone think about the price for the reserve for the county?
We're grabbing numbers out of the wind because we don't know.
Yeah, that's why. Do we wait on that?
I know at the treasurer's conference when I went, the clerk from, Door County was there. She said they set theirs at 125,000. A neighboring, within their county wanted a license and they said, no, that's too much. They turned around and really needed it like a year later, 250,000. They bought it. So, and I know this week, there were 2 requests on the clerk network, communities that are looking for liquor licenses.
Outside of Allegheny County.
Outside of Allegheny County, but it's a topic, it's a hot one. It's just, what's the price?
Right.
How many do we have?
We have 2 reserves,
Well, you know.
so we have a total of 2 reserves, and we only have
Never
one,
over the creek.
and we only have one available. Because one has been purchased in the past and it's still being utilized by Otter Creek.
Mhm.
So there's only one reserve available.
But we gained for every 500,
Yep.
was it?
Every 500 in population, which I think was around 36 or 7,000, we get another one?
Yeah.
Or 3,700, sorry.
When in Hortonville, it comes to.
Yeah,
But we do have 2 regular licenses too,
right.
on top of that.
So for us to maybe change that 80 to 100, is that out of,
I chose the number between, 100,000 and 50,000, which was my initial thoughts. I mean, you could list it whatever you want.
because once it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
So it's a one-time deal.
I mean, yeah, I think Door County is obviously a little different. But I don't know, maybe Appleton would spend more. I don't know. It's all kind of up in the air.
I think they would, especially for the first of the dance.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and I know Greenville's probably gonna end up selling about 8 for sale. They have 15 reserves right now. They can't fill them, so,
Does Appleton know that we're talking about this?
no.
I
Not that I
would
know
go
of.
higher.
I mean, they might if they watch, but I doubt they do watch our videos, so.
I'd go like 150 and then ask him.
Yeah, I mean,
If we really want to sell it. Is the goal to sell it or?
I think the goal is it's not really being utilized. I don't know how much it would be utilized over the next few years. And, could we get 100K out of it? Could we get a decent amount that makes it worth it to us? That's kind of the question.
Potentially in 3 years, we could get to the next one.
Right.
Right.
Or then we might have more data too on how many sold at what rate. And you can always alter the price that you want to sell that one at, if you want to sell that. That one you might want to keep. The structure of the village might be different by that time too.
So the 10,000 for the local, is that a pretty average number for a local?
That's the minimum. But
So that could be increased.
I would guess that's average. I don't know if you'd want to increase it. I don't know of any
No.
businesses that would want it. I mean, it's just gonna hinder any bar-type businesses in the village. Unless that's the goal, then the idea would be to raise it. So then you would only have potentially 9 businesses in total with alcohol licenses. Until that other reserve leaves, and then you would have
Based on the community survey, that wasn't the direction, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of like, what kind of businesses were they looking for?
right, I mean, I think there was a lot of comments about bars and not, but you're also, changing that also hinders restaurants.
Yeah.
No matter
Mhm.
if it's a bar restaurant or not, it's gonna limit that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think
I
leaving the
think-
local one at 10 is,
10 is
10,000 is plenty.
Yeah.
The county one, I think we could go higher than 80, but that's maybe just my opinion.
yeah, it's whatever you guys feel like would be worth it, potentially.
And the board always has final say. Whether at the time we anticipate a need in our own municipality to add one, we could just say no, no matter what price it was.
No.
No.
So if we had one available, a reserve license available, and a resident or a business owner came in to purchase one, we couldn't deny them unless we had a reason by law, which is usually meaning they have liquor problems, with law enforcement. But once it's a license, I mean, any license, we can't deny necessarily just because we don't want that business. So, is my understanding.
Yeah, and it also prevents municipalities from saying no, but then changing their ordinance for a higher amount, which, I'd rather go a little higher than 80. But that's my opinion, I don't know how you guys.
I agree. We should go higher. What dollar amount do we want? 150?
Yeah. I think 150, it seems crazy, but I think there's there's potential there, and
You also got Grand Chute, you got,
I
what?
talked to Grand Chute,
Darhoy,
I don't
you
think
got-
they're gonna do it. They have enough right now, they just are getting low is the issue. But I think Appleton's the only one that I know of that is at limit and has a long list.
if we find that this is sitting there for years and no one's touching us because we're so high, we can always change this. There's
Right, I mean, yeah,
What would the funds get used for?
it would go into the village's general fund and could be applied how the board really wants to use it.
how that current board, because we can't,
Right.
this board can't determine that.
right.
So are you guys okay? I can make a motion, or I'm hesitant?
I'm okay with 150.
Yeah, say
Yeah.
150.
Yeah, I mean, to start, we can always change it.
Yeah, we can.
Right.
It sounds like a crazy number to me too.
It does. I will make a
You know.
motion to approve resolution R-13-24, amending the current fee schedule, with the, changes of
Village approval,
village board approval, and increasing the county jurisdiction to 150,000.
Second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion carried. We will then go to B, discussion and possible action on Nye Street Parking Ordinance O-5-24.
so this notice was sent out again to the residents that this was the plan that the board was gonna go through. And I don't think anyone's here from that area to discuss it. It's basically blocking parking on the south side of Nash Street. Or south side of Nye Street from Nash to Mill. My bad.
Any phone calls about it or anything? Just nothing?
Nothing. I'm kind of nervous that something got lost in the mail twice, but
Okay.
we did do a notice to them when we first did our public hearing to discuss what to do with this area, and then we sent another notice to the residents of what the plan was to go forward, and we have not had a single call, which,
At the same time, I think that those residents probably are hindered by all the parking down there just the same, so maybe there's nothing to say because they like the idea, because they're hindered by it. I mean, there's a lot of cars.
In conjunction with this, or?
the center line would be a little later. We have to wait till the temperature heats up for it.
Yeah, in the middle of the road, they have the county do it. Not our guys.
But that's the plan is to, along with this, is to, that get at a convenient time here, move the center line as well.
So,
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve O-5-24.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we'll go to C, discussion and possible action on driveway ordinance O-6-24.
So this is trying to fix one of the issues that we've had with some of these parcels that had prior smaller sizes, rather than the 24-foot, or actually, so, let me restraight. The old ordinance made it so that everyone had to have a 30-foot wide driveway. That wasn't something that the village staff abided by for years, it looks like. So, they went from, basically, it looks like the staff for the past few years have been doing 24 to 36 all the way through, where basically what the old ordinance stated was that it had to be 24 to 36, and then right when the sidewalk came in, it would either shrink or it would widen out to 30, depending on which size, where you were at size-wise. So this is just basically making it how staff was doing it. And also changing it so that we can still give permits potentially to those that have older homes that basically are less than 24 feet, that can't make that width.
You know, the driveway by me that goes to the water tower is about 12 and a half feet. What are you going to do with them? What would you do with that driveway? There's no way it can expand.
Right.
So you're saying they would be grandfathered in?
No, this would actually make it so they could pave it. Currently, they can't. So
they can
currently,
pave it without
Right
having to
now, they
expand.
can't pave that driveway?
technically, we're supposed to make them have it be 24 feet. So this would make it so that anything that was made that was prior that couldn't get to the 24 foot would be allowed to be utilized, but it has to be existing currently.
So they're not forced to expand the current
Correct.
numbers,
Okay.
You can stay within your footprint now.
as long, they can upgrade without.
They can stay
having to
within their
expand
footprint or get wider
up
if they're
to-
smaller than 24 feet, is the rule. Now, is what it would turn to. Right now, we wouldn't technically be able to allow them. I
I don't think they know that,
Well,
because they're planning on doing it.
I don't think anyone does, because realistically, there's a lot of homes in the village that are under that 24 or 30-foot curb cut. That's part of the reason to do this change, in my eyes, is because you have all of basically Wildwind Phase 1 and 2 that are all 36 feet wide, if not wider. You have, issues even in the Parker Heights subdivision. Most of those are at least 24 to 36. I mean, I think the older parts of town are kind of stuck. They're stuck with the size they have. They can't go any further, and it makes very little sense to not allow them to get a building permit to put in driveway.
Can I make one suggestion? Instead of existing driveways, could we send dated, like driveways predating 2024 or whatever that year might be? To be clear about that.
Sure.
I think that's the one suggestion that I would make. When someone's reading it, any driveway might be existing, you don't know.
And was, yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve O-6-24 with the change in wording from existing to, exist prior to.
Driveways constructed prior to.
Yeah, constructed prior to,
Would be 2024.
what's yeah, today's date, this year's date.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we'll go to F, discussion and possible action on the appointment of Stephanie Holtz to the library board. I just need a motion to accept her.
I'll make a motion to approve Stephanie Holtz to the library board.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. G, discussion and possible action of cancellation of the July 4th Village Board meeting, which is on a Thursday.
Yep. So I figured you guys would want this canceled.
That's a good idea.
If we need to have a board meeting, we'll try to call a special board meeting if it's needed somewhere between those two, the meeting prior and the next meeting. But yeah, there's no point to try to reschedule it.
Okay, I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to cancel the July 4th, 2024 village board meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer, Jane.
My report was in the packet.
Does anyone have questions for Jane? Okay, then we will move to B, director of public works, Aaron.
My report was in the packet, and we will have crews moving into town tomorrow to start our crack filling projects for this year.
Oh, good. Any questions for Aaron?
Updates on the alley
So they went over it and did some of the prep work. Now they just need to get it on their schedule to have it repaid. So they dug out and grinded down a bunch of stuff of the parts of the worst part.
Have we spoken to the residents on how they feel about the progress?
They've been in, we've had a couple residents come in and talk to us about it, and they're happy stuff is getting done, but just kind of not waiting for that final layer to finish it up.
Second question was, there was discussion about painting a line on Bath Street
Yeah.
around the corner. Is that
Yeah.
going to happen?
Probably at the same time as where we moved the one on
Nye Street?
Nye Street.
Okay. I just don't want to get it forgotten, just
No.
because that was a attempt to solve the problem.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to C, Police Chief, Chris.
And my report is in the packet also.
What's a public health vending machine?
So, Outagamie County and Grand Chute have installed public health vending machines, is what they're called. So you can basically, you can put anything that you want in them, but they're Narcan based. So Grand Chute and Public Health have vending machines, however, they're not available to the public 24 hours. Outagamie County has went as far as purchasing with the grant, so it's a $50,000 grant, okay? With the $50,000 grant, you can decide what type of vending machine you would like to purchase, whether it is just a basic one where they go up, somebody needs Narcan, they can put I2 and Narcan drops down, or they, like the one for Outagamie County, you have to put in like where you're coming from. So they're receiving data that people from Hortonville, people from Triacton, people from New London are all coming, they're traveling to the county municipal or the county building to gather those items. But you can put things in there like gun locks. Outagamie County is also, they put together like health and beauty needs, you know, kind of, you know, like toothpaste, toothbrushes, you know, things like that into the vending machine. So it's primarily Narcan driven, but you can put other things in them.
And then once
Once it's
it's
dried
gone,
up,
then you have to fund it yourself to fill it? or
Well, not necessarily, no. We can just,
keep applying for a grant, or?
we can keep applying for grants as the grants come about, so we could apply for a grant every year. Or we could just decide we don't wanna continue this project and it dissolves.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
What does it cost to get Narcan?
Well, Narcan,
Like someone's just paying, like it's just put in their credit card in the machine, or?
no, it's not, everything's free.
Oh, it's free.
Yeah, everything in that vending machine would be free.
Okay.
No cost to anybody. And we, with the public health department, I was talking to them more about like how our drug drop-off box works. So when we got talking about that, then we got talking about you guys would be an ideal location. She's been in our building. She's worked with Ally on a couple different things. She said, you guys just have a wonderful site here because it's open 24 hours. We have the food pantry, we have the drug drop-off box, we have the defibrillator, we have everything right here.
I've seen them where they even have EpiPens and
Yeah,
glucagon. Yeah, you know, and those emergency meds.
so that, and what we would do then is Tyler is gonna, Officer Hayden's gonna be the one that's gonna primarily man this whole project. He's the one that, he wrote the grant. We're still waiting to hear back if we get the grant, but then he's the one that will go out and seek different items to put into the vending machine, that would be beneficial to the public. We have a supply of gun locks already, so we could put gun locks in there. So those types of items that we can receive for free, we would put in there.
Any other questions for Chris? Okay, we will go to D, Library Director, Ally.
If you may have noticed, there are many boxes in the room. Our book and bake sale starts tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So we'll be in here bright and early getting that set up. We also have 4,300 summer library brochures that we have put inserts in and are starting to distribute to the schools. So we are really starting to market our summer programming. We attended NGES today for Community Helpers Day. Only got rained out the last half hour, so lucky-ish. And that was really exciting because a lot of kids didn't know that Hortonville had a library. They know about their school libraries, but they didn't know the extent of what public libraries can really provide. So hoping to get new families in and really using our services.
Any questions for Ally? Okay, we'll go to E, attorney, Ashley. Okay. F, administrator, Nathan.
I can't remember if I sent my report out to you guys this week. I feel like I missed that. Basically, one of the things in there is talking about the industrial park phase 2 area, reanalyzing the covenants on that one puts us in a weird position because we don't have a vote on changing the covenants. So the way the covenants are written is kind of implied, and I talked with the attorney about it, that basically it's up to the business owners themselves to amend the covenants if they want to. So,
But just in that phase.
correct. Phase 1 does not have that language in there, so that one would still be under our vote, I guess. The issue with phase 2, technically we're still the enforcement mechanism of it for some reason.
So we're an enforcement mechanism for something we have no control of changing.
Correct.
But still facilitating this meeting with the property owners obviously is important, and being transparent about what was discovered in the
Yep. So
phase 2 covenants.
I already talked to one of the business owners, Mary Algram, about that. I think she was gonna talk to a few of them, and she asked what I thought about them going forward. I had just said, I think if you guys want to keep them and try to man these yourselves and take us out of it completely as an enforcement, to maybe come up and create an association or something for you guys to basically man. Otherwise, they could just remove them all. So, that is up to them to kind of figure out. So, it puts us in a little weirder situation for the phase 1, but, yeah.
Well, perhaps what you do is you mimic,
Try to, yeah.
keep it consistent.
So, other than that, finished the developers agreement with Terrace Manor subdivision that was purchased a few days ago. The developer purchased the property. Other than that, working on a few other property issues and meeting with the county on a few grant opportunities they have with environmental grants. And then I've been on and off all week when it's nice, so taking my vacations randomly, so.
Any questions for Nathan? Okay, we'll go to G, building permit report. There is none. H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
I have something, and I don't know if it's public safety, public works, but we've talked about it over a couple of, well, at least 4 years that I can remember. The line on Oak Street between Town and Main, because of the buses turning, of moving that line so that it's not on center, but moving it more of a westerly direction, because people try and make it a 3-lane. So without discussion, I don't know if it's a public safety thing, public works, but before we get anybody in here from the
I'd say
county to
due
start.
to what you're talking about, I'd say public safety maybe?
I think, but before we get anyone in here to paint lines, it'd be nice to maybe clean that up as well, because yeah.
Or you could do it at a cow if it's something that you'd wanna do sooner that we could do, 30 minutes before a board meeting.
I don't even know if 30 minutes is needed, but
Well, right, I mean, you could do 15 minutes and then whenever
Something.
it's done, then you go right into your board meeting.
I'd be fine with that. I just know that we've sort of kicked that one down the road, and I was there the other day and thought of it, and went, we needed to do something.
Where was that?
Oak Street between Town and Main, closer to the Main Street intersection. People make it into a 3-lane road, and I don't want to discuss it, but it's
No problem.
because those buses to turn right from Main onto Oak, the buses are hopping the curb so bad because people are lining up double.
Yeah.
They
The
shouldn't
traffic
be.
trying to leave on Oak onto Main,
Yeah.
they're going right and left, they kind of split that
We've
road.
talked about it for years about moving that line over. I just don't think we've ever taken action on it, so.
Do you wanna set that up for the cow for next time?
15 minutes prior.
15 minutes.
Yeah. Unless you have other public safety issues with something.
No, it'd be fine, I think next meeting we have the 9th Street people too, so.
I just want to clean that up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And especially if we've got other painting stuff going on.
I have a discussion item. Could we discuss, doing like just a general business promotion? I remember at one of our information gathering things for the comp plan, someone said like, oh, the village could do better at promoting all of the businesses, so just a
Yeah, I mean, we could add that as a discussion on anything if you wanted, a board, cow, doesn't matter. Would you prefer do initial discussion at a board meeting, I guess? I don't know.
just promoting all the different businesses we have in our fund.
Anything else?
Highlight them in the 42nd month or something.
That's it then?
So I guess maybe the question is, are we doing 15 minutes earlier for a cow at the next meeting? Is that scheduled? I mean, or are we?
Yeah, I mean, I thought everyone said yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make, because I'll put on the calendar. I gotta make sure.
Okay, then we will go to 11,
June 6th.
communications and miscellaneous business. A, Blackwater Lake District News.
We've got our next meeting Monday, this coming Monday,
And what time?
and that is at 5, I think it was, wasn't it? Here,
I think so. I can't remember off the top of my head.
5:30, excuse me.
5:30?
5:30 to 6:30.
Okay.
What's our current status with the weed harvester?
What was it, June before?
June 1st.
June 1st?
We have it, it's just
Okay.
we can't
There's
cut.
a DNR.
DNR rules, yeah, okay. And do you know what the requirements? So you get people to volunteer to drive that, right? Yes. Do you know what the requirements are?
Don't know if they're.
To be a volunteer.
Yeah.
No,
think they
they
have
just
it.
train, like Al Haddock is usually the one who trains anybody to
Okay.
work on it.
My son and his friend both just took motor safety, and they asked me, do you have an age that you have to be, or?
That I don't know.
And we could add it as we could discuss it at the
Yeah.
next meeting.
Might be something in insurance or something like that.
Exactly.
We can check into it.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News.
The only thing is that the fire department, the Hortonville, Hortonia Fire Department's having their summer kickoff, this Saturday. So Lots of all-day bands, inflatables for kids, food. I think they have cornhole tournament, a bunch of stuff going on.
This is all right at the station?
Yep, right at the fire station. They let you run around inside the fire trucks and the kids and things like that.
Okay, then we will move to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News, and it is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, Jane.
I have nothing new.
E, Senior Activities Committee, the report was in the packet. 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Okay, 13, we would need a motion to go into closed session.
Make a motion to go into closed session, state statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically purchasing of public properties.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 14, we would need 5 minutes recess to clear the meeting room. 17, any action on matters discussed in closed session? There is none. 18, I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We adjourned at 8:29.